In this comparative study, I will be looking at how action films differ in different regions of the world due to their respective cultural context by comparing and contrasting Hong Kong's internal affairs with Hollywood's remake of the film, The Departed. The two films ultimately follow very similar storylines, ending up with themes that are quite similar as well, but the context of the films caused the directors to go about telling the theme in very different ways. In the original Infernal Affairs, directors Andrew Lau and Alan Mak immediately begin to draw parallels between the lead characters, Lau Kin-ming and Chan Wing-yen, by cross-cutting between their respective training programs. While Chan goes through his police training course, Lau is indoctrinated by the ideals of the Triad. The quick-paced cuts show a parallel in how the police and the Triad members are trained. While the methods are similar, the environments and the ideas instilled in the respective members are vastly different. The film works quickly to ensure that the audience understands that the character of Lau Kin-ming is not an evil one. Rather, he's an unfortunate product of his environment. Lau's first encounter with Chan is in a radio store where Chan works. This scene serves to establish a connection between the two characters, showing that they are not so different at heart. From the beginning of their interaction, they are placed in a two-shot, seeming very comfortable with each other, almost like brothers. The men of very different backgrounds enjoy the same leisures. With a jump cut placing Lau in a different location in the scene, a passage of time is implied. The soon-to-be rivals have sat in the same location enjoying each other's presence for an extended period of time. Contrasting the build-up of the antagonist as a character to empathize with, The Departed divides the main characters, Sullivan and Costigan. Because of the United States cultural context, American films tend to settle into a driving "these are the good guys" and "these are the bad guys" narrative, especially in 2006 when the War on Terror had recently begun. Americans were united against clear enemies. Hollywood films prefer to clearly state who the bad guys are to the audience, rather than present both characters as having dubious morals that they question throughout the film. In the training scene that parallels that in Internal Affairs, we also experience a cross-cutting between Costigan and Sullivan. However, this time it is meant to foreshadow the future conflict they would experience rather than present a similarity between the two. In this scene, the cop, Costigan, is seen aiming down the barrel of his gun. After this, the mob member Sullivan is shown in a long shot, with an iris effect surrounding him, as if the audience was looking at Sullivan through the perspective of Costigan's gun. Martin Scorsese uses this one visual metaphor to tell the viewers that Costigan and Sullivan would soon be enemies. Similarly, the cultural context affects the respective directors' decisions on the main characters' reasons for living the life they do. Early in the films, the parallel characters, Sam and Costello, who are the mob bosses in each film, give very similar speeches that I'd like you to keep in mind as this essay progresses. 師傅成日話：我呢條命叫做一將功成萬骨枯，條路點行係你哋自己揀。I don't want to be a product of my environment. I want my environment to be a product of me. The most meaningful relationship for Lau in Internal Affairs is his relationship with his girlfriend. You can tell that they are very close because of how comfortably they sit with each other, with close character proxemics. As Lau's girlfriend questions how to end a book she's writing in which the main character is essentially a good guy who does bad things, the camera presents a close-up of Lau's face. The close-up shot makes the audience feel that Lau is questioning his own morals, since he is very similar to the character in his girlfriend's novel. The differences in character and background between Lau Ming and Colin Sullivan ultimately lead to extremely similar scenes having completely different effects. When the police finally catch up with the mob bosses of each film, the lead antagonists decide to kill their bosses. In Internal Affairs, Lau stands very strongly in the center of the frame with his body fully facing the camera. It displays an air of confidence, showing that Lau has made his decision and has no questions on if it's right or wrong. He knows he is a good guy, and he wants to do good things. It also displays power, since Sam is partially rotated and not fully in frame. The contrast in body language and positioning within the frame shows that Lau is in full control. Just before Lau kills Sam, he remembers the speech we mentioned earlier, and says, "I've chosen." Such a statement brings the theme of the film to center stage. One's environment may affect their life, but they ultimately have the power to choose if they let their environment define them. The Departed's matching scene has a very different impact because of Sullivan's almost familial connection with Costello. In this scene, Sullivan is confronting Frank over his status as an FBI informant. Rather than the scene being about deciding to make a turn to the right side of the law, it's about self preservation. Sullivan's nervous energy is shown by constant pacing, not holding strong in a powerful position of the screen like Lau did. At one point, Sullivan gets closer to Costello and puts an arm on his shoulder. This makes it seem like their bond is coming into play, and Sullivan is trying to help Costello with his injury, but instead, he asks if the FBI knows about him. Costello fails to give a straight answer, and once again, Sullivan increases the distance between himself and the man he used to think of as a father. Through character proxemics, Scorsese shows that the relationship the two shared has been broken. After killing Costello, Sullivan takes a position looking down on him, reflected by the low angle of the camera, showing that their relationship was always about power. Costello's quote about not being a product of your environment still rings true, but in a very different way than Sam's. Sullivan is attempting to create an environment in which he's the good guy, even though he's a self-serving, evil man at heart. The cultural context of the two films led to the American adaptation expressing a very similar theme to Infernal Affairs, in a way which satisfies the American audience by creating clear-cut good and bad guys, as well as adapting the relationships within the story to fit that narrative.